I call to order this meeting of the regular meeting of the Monument Town Council, Monday, November 4th, 2024. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Erickson, will you take roll?
Councilmember Chronic,
Here.
Councilmember Romanell,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Here.
Councilmember Abbott,
Here.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Here.
Mayor LaKine,
Here.
Councilmember Kimball.
Here.
Okay, before we begin, I'd like to bring to everybody's attention that we had a tragic incident today here in Monument. And in light of the loss of life and the fact that our first responders had to go and take care of this situation, both police and fire, and now EPSO, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence. So if everybody would take a moment. Thank you. Rebecca, do we have any disclosures of conflicts of interest tonight?
No, we do not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, then I will look for, we have before us an agenda and a consent agenda. Any modifications to either? If not, I will look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, Ms. Erickson?
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball,
Yes.
Mayor LaKine,
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Aye.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanella.
Yes.
Okay, we have first up a proclamation that is to recognize Law Enforcement Records Personnel Week. I'm going to take this one for Chief tonight and read this proclamation. This is a proclamation to recognize November 4th through November 8th as Law Enforcement Records Personnel Week. Whereas dedicated law enforcement records personnel serve the citizens of Colorado to provide them with vital services. And whereas law enforcement records personnel are crucial to assisting law enforcement agencies in identifying, pursuing, capturing, and processing suspected suspects. And whereas the professionals continually use their expertise and experience in maintaining criminal justice statistics and improving apprehension strategies. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff law enforcement records is materially influenced by the people's attitude toward and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. And whereas law enforcement records personnel serving the state of Colorado have exhibited professionalism, efficiency, and compassion during the performance of their essential duties in the past year. And whereas the state of Colorado previously designated the second week of November 2023 to recognize law enforcement records personnel. Now, therefore, the Monument Town Council hereby proclaims November 4th through November 8th, 2024 as Law Enforcement Records Personnel Week and publicly salutes the service of records personnel in our community and across the nation. Proclaim this fourth day of November 2024. Please make sure our records personnel know that we appreciate them and we welcome them to come in and introduce themselves one day.
I will. Thank you.
All right, next up, we've got presentations. Our first up is Steve Murray and our 2025 budget.
Hey, good evening, council members and mayor. We will be starting off with the 24 amended budget and then moving into the proposed 2025 budget. For the 2024 amended budget, each beginning fund balance was tied to the 23 audited financials issued on 6/13/24. And this changed a lot of the beginning balances going forward throughout our amended budget. We'll be starting with the general fund. In 2024, the approved budget was 16.46% unreserved fund balance. The amended budget shows us a 30.76 unreserved fund balance. And the large contributing factors to those changes in fund balances were, like I mentioned, tying to the 2023 the audited financials. And then investments earnings, we had an increase of 300,000 in our revenue. And this was in part due to the Wells Fargo investment. We weren't sure of the viability of the long-term strategy. As we realized that it's a good investment, we continued. It was not budgeted in 2024, so we're adding that in. And then we see a reduction in revenue for the use charges and fees by 175,000, as we will not be receiving any funding from TriView for the comprehensive plan.
Can we stop there for a second?
Yes.
What happened with that?
Mayor LaKind, this is Dan Ungerleiter. The council had instructed me not to pursue additional funding from TriView because you wanted it to be solely for the a project run by you, council, and the residents that participate.
Just checking.
I will be stopping at the end of each fund for any questions that you may have. So for here, we'll have general fund. Any other questions there? Okay. Yes.
I mean, with the TriView being part of the comprehensive plan, I mean, they do provide 2/3 of the water to the town. So shouldn't they have some kind of involvement or being asked questions or input? Because that does affect our town.
Councilor Kimball, they will be involved just as any other agency or organization within the town of Monument or outside partners. So they absolutely will be a stakeholder in the process. But the instruction that I was provided by the council was that you didn't want them paying into the pay to play, so to speak, if I remember correctly. So we did not pursue additional funds from TriView to support this process.
I don't really remember that, but
None of us are.
I'm not sure if that was a
Yeah,
misunderstanding.
I remember saying we didn't want any money from them to support the comp plan.
I could certainly talk to Mr. McGrady and see if he would participate and be part of it, but that it's been quite some time since we last talked about it. So
Well, last I heard, I thought it was 200,000, not 175.
It would have been 100,000 that we were asking, that we kind of had anticipated that they might contribute, but
Yeah, that's the
It
number
was-
I remember.
it was our impression that council was not interested in TriView paying into that.
Doesn't ring a bell. Well, how do my fellow council people feel about that now that we're actually discussing it?
Well, given that they, for Councilmember Kimball's assessment of how big they are in the size of the town, it does make sense to have them at the table,
Right.
and it's going to impact them. So if they're willing to pay, I don't see why we'd turn it down.
I don't think I don't think it would hurt to ask.
Right.
Think we're all in
Yeah.
agreement?
So,
There may have been some misunderstanding
was-
and
you know,
misinterpretation.
yeah, it's probably our fault for not really
Clarifying.
being clear on that. So,
And I think what Dan is saying is they will be part of the comprehensive plan like we were in 2017.
Yeah.
It's just to this time around, I think it'd be worthwhile to ask TriView if they're willing to pitch in as part of that participation. Did I capture that
yes,
correctly?
yes, and I'll certainly pursue it. Do you recall if they participated in the last?
I was
Financially, they participated in the.
not financially, but I was one of the TriView board members that was asked to participate in the comprehensive plan in 2017.
All intention, they are absolutely a stakeholder and they work.
Yeah,
they
and I
participate.
think that wasn't in question. That part wasn't in question. I think where we kind of crossed wires was the financial contribution. And I think it's worth asking.
Right.
We will ask them.
Did you have any other questions? Did anybody have questions since we're ending the general fund?
So we went from 16.46% unreserved fund balance, jumping up to 30% unreserved fund balance. Is that like, so that's almost double. And this is all because of the 2023 financial ending balance, or did we do something, or was something else being done? And
There are some additional expenditures that I'll talk about coming forward, but primarily it was matching to the ending fund balances of the audited financials.
Okay. So, and that equaled how much in millions?
For water fund alone, it was about 15 million. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head.
they're close.
That's
substantial.
substantial amount of money to
See?
Fund.
not find. Yes. Was not found and now it is. Okay.
And just one last question about the audit. Who does the audit that we found this suddenly?
The audit that was conducted was from Inco and Company. And we will be RFPing for a new audit firm this year. As we move to the home rule charter, it's part of our charter that we get a new audit firm every 3 years.
All right,
Well,
thank you.
when you find the new audit firm, see if they can find some more money also.
Yeah. That's better this way than the other one.
Is there any additional questions on the amended general fund?
Nope, not yet.
All right, that'll lead us into the 2F police fund. So in 2024, we had an ending fund balance there of 252,000. And then after amendments, we're up to 793,000. And these are, again, tying to the audited financials. And then we had a $60,000 payoff, loan payoff that happened at the end of 2023. But the expenditures were already budgeted into 2024. So this is to amend that $60,000 loan payoff. And are there any questions on the amended police 2F?
I think there was going to be a question, or it's been asked and answered, but I just want to get clarity on the record. The loan payoff was for police vehicle leases.
Yes, it was for 165,000 and it was for 3 vehicles.
So we've paid those off and the vehicles have what, been turned in and replaced, or we still have them?
We still have them.
Thank you.
So we're just not paying on them anymore.
We're not paying on them anymore.
That's always a good feeling.
Well, when you find $15 million,
For the 2024 amendment, the water, we had an ending balance, and this is where you're going to see that big number of 3.2 million. And then after the amendments, we have an ending balance of 18.2 million. Again, the large contributing factor was the audited financials and tying to that. And then we also were able to reduce the reserve by 387,000. And this is to keep in compliance with an ordinance of 2014 that states that we only have to have 756,000 held in the reserve. And then we had a reduce in investments earnings of 250,000 as we have completely spent all the money for the COP bond. We will have no additional interest revenue. And then we see an increase of expenses in wells 11, 12, and 13. And this expense increase is approximately $1.78 million.
Okay, back to the ordinance 19/2014.
Yes.
Would it be worthwhile for us to look at that again? Because I mean, that's 10 years old.
yeah, you were reading my mind. I was going to ask, with inflation and the economy being what it is the dollar amount that was listed in 20, because I didn't see a copy of it in the packet and I didn't go look, but it would be good for us to revisit that ordinance to make sure that the reserves match what our economy is matching.
Yeah, and the ordinance was for the Monument Lake water storage. And I can look in and make sure that there's no additional rate increase for inflation.
And I was gonna ask, why the specific dollar amount versus a percentage? Usually it's presented in percentage format, right?
So I
Um,
can explain this.
yeah.
So this is monies that were given to us by TriView to secure water storage in Monument Lake. And so it was originally 600,000. And so with interest, that's what the account has grown to. But those funds are earmarked for that specific use. And so that's why that reserve dollar amount is that amount.
So we're storing water for TriView in Monument Lake.
They've bought storage capacity in Monument Lake.
Are they using it?
I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to see.
Right.
They can only swim in a certain part of it.
Correct.
It's with our reaches. Well, 1 acre foot.
Could I add some light to that specific fund? When TriView gave that money to the town, it's for what they call post-pumping depletions. When their wells run down to the point where they're non-productive or they're not efficient enough to run them enough to supply, then they had to secure the ability to store water for future. And I'm talking like way in the future. And they had originally gone to Forest Lakes Metro and tried to acquire space at Bristlecone Reservoir. And Forest Lakes turned them down. And at the time, and again, this is going back 10 years ago, the council at that time thought, well, why not be a good neighbor? We're not doing nothing else with our lake water. We don't use that water for our water system in particular. It's purely a recreational lake. There are people downstream that have senior water rights like Woodmore and a few others. But anyway, all they did was they wanted to secure the ability to put water in there at some point in the future. It just secures the ability to store water. It doesn't mean we have to pay to pipe their water into our lake, and that would come at a future time. It's purely a storage contract with TriView that was instituted about 10 years ago. And it's got very specific uses. It can only be used to do infrastructure improvements to the lake, such as if we tried to raise the dam higher to store more capacity, that could be used for that, because that would again provide additional capacity. The problem now is, though, that lake is physically unable to get bigger, because the higher the dam goes, you won't have a Monument Beach anymore. You're going to encroach on a house that's on that one little spot, and it's going to cause much bigger issues trying to raise the spillway, basically.
You said it was a contract. How long is the contract for?
I don't remember. It's been a while since I've looked at that.
So there's an IGA in the ordinance. I'm looking at
Yes.
it right now that is not attached to the ordinance. So I think, could you get a copy of the 2014 IGA to council, please? So that it can be reviewed, because the
Sure.
ordinance is a little light. And there is an affidavit, which I assume is required for this particular ordinance. But yeah, it doesn't really give a lot of detail, except for the establishment of the Monument Lakes Water Storage Fund, and that we are required to accurately account for deposits and expenditures for infrastructure improvements and delivery of water, which, as I'm hearing, we have no way to get them water into the lake or out of the lake at this time.
No, this is just pure the capacity to store water. TriView would have to come up with the money to put water in there through piping or to pull water out.
Okay, water trucks,
Helicopters.
helicopter.
Helicopter. Okay.
There's something about water and TriView that you don't know about?
I've tried with Jim, but I don't know that he's even tracking.
It's probably.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is, but it's for a lot of us, but yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's continue.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're talking about this all night.
And we got some more to continue. So for the booster station, we have upgrades that we reduced the expense by 750,000. This is to help cover the overspending in wells 11, 12, and 13. You have valve and pipeline replacement program, that is also been reduced by 450,000, again, to help with the well overspending. And then we reclassed the contingency expense of 180,000 to well repairs and maintenance. Reduce the spending of vehicles and equipment by 250,000, and this will help to cover the pipeline of the water tank. And then we have the new water tank pipeline, increase of 260,000. And then we removed 2.75 million from the capital improvement project. And this was for the fourth new water tank, because we're still having legal, up on the land.
I'm sorry.
Or, I'm sorry, monument building.
Yeah, I was like, what? We're talking about, with the Comcast landowner town, we're still having drama, legal drama.
There's still negotiations occurring with this parcel.
Probably need to have an executive session on this, please. This has been dragging on for more than a year or two. Steve?
Thank you, Will. I'll restart that so it catches on the microphone. The last fund we'll be talking about is the storm drainage impact fee. And this relates to the ARPA money. We'll be transferring the $2 million into the storm drainage impact fee to be spent in 2025.
And we're going to get that money before the time runs out.
Correct. I believe Jeremiah is on for the 18th to present the funding for that money.
Okay.
And then is there any
Wait,
additional
any questions?
for the amended budget?
Okay, let's move on to the proposed.
All right, dive right into the 2025 proposed budget. For the mill levy calculation, we have 5 mills as resolution 75, 2023. And then we'll start off with the general fund. So the important note I'd like to talk about first is law enforcement will be part of the general fund in 2025. And this is in compliance with ordinance 27, 2021. And so you'll see a lot of expenditures coming into the general fund. But first we'll start with revenue. We see an increase in all tax by 567,000 as we're expecting a 2% increase of tax this year. An increase in governmental agreement by 524,000, and this is grant revenue for the Verigy project. An increase in use charge fees by 146,000, and this is revenue from franchise fees. An increase in investment by 400,000, and this is the full year of investment. As mentioned in the amended budget, we did not think this was going to be a long-term strategy. It is. And then lastly, for the revenues, we have an increase of other revenue by 350,000. And this is by taking on the law enforcement. They're providing SRO services to Monument Academy and extra duty to Woodman Valley. And that is it for the revenues. Do you have any questions on that?
So you're saying the ordinance that established the ballot initiative to go from 3 to 3.5, so 2F, it indicated that the money should be the general fund money should not transfer out and be classified under the town's general fund.
Correct. And the 2F should be a separate fund that tracks and identifies that 0.5% only for specific items. And when I talk about the 2F fund here, I'll list out those exact items, what they need to be spent on.
I think we know what the exact items are, the amount of officers, the equipment. I just don't see in the ordinance where it says that the money should be, I went to town staff, the town manager at the time, and said X amount of dollars will be transferred out as a guarantee at a minimum, it was around 2.7 million. I know there's an ask for an increase, which I support, but how do we know that money is going to be transferred out or earmarked for police if we can't see it on paper?
So we will have, they will have all their own funds. And so right now their 7151 is the 2F fund number or account number. They will have all their same, the 0151 as they'll be part of the general fund. So we'll be able to track all of their expenditures, all the revenues. And then Patrick will be able to help us assist in the budgeting for all of any needs that he has.
And everybody on staff is okay with this?
This is how we do it for all of our departments. So they're broken out into their own general fund information. And so every department has that information. And in fact, in the published budget, that is how it's published as well. You can see each individual department's budgets.
So,
You just don't have that information yet for 2025 since we're still finalizing those
well,
numbers.
from a transparency perspective, if someone comes in and says that they want to see the police budget, I assume that you know, but when you look at it from this perspective in the packets and things like that, that's online, you can't tell what Public Works budget is. You can't tell what parks and police are because they're sort of rolled up into a singular general fund line item.
So this was a request from Councilmember Chronic. Actually, we received today about providing more detail to the council member regarding these line items. We were not able to get there in time today, but Lori was able to get one ready as of last week, and it is part of your packet that you have. It is the General Fund Law Enforcement Department, and this breaks down kind of like what you're looking for, all the expenses, all the revenues specifically for the law enforcement.
Okay, I think we're just gonna have to get used to it the new way. Can't say that I'm a fan.
Well, and just to elaborate on my question earlier, and I appreciate that they didn't really have time to do anything because I asked late.
Right.
But my impression was that when you lump all of this together and you put it in one place, the perception is whoever gets there first gets the money. And that is not, at least from my perspective, and is an acceptable way to handle things. So that's why I was asking for a more detailed breakout as to, what that giant lump sum was.
Well, I don't know that they're really doing that. I don't know that that's how they're doing the budget though, right? I mean, you're from what I've seen is you have your, what I call the wish list, the plan for the next year, and then you you present it to the council to where the council sets the priorities and the cutoffs, and then that kind of drives how the general fund gets divvied out, right?
Yes, that is correct. So we meet with all the department heads, make sure we understand all their needs, all their wants, and that is that supplemental list. That's all the wants, and we make sure that all the needs are taken care of before the wants are moved in. And one thing is, I'll kind of jump into it a little bit, is we do have a new finance director with Jennifer Phillips starting, which has a wealth of knowledge and experience, and will be able to help on a lot of these topics as we move forward as well.
Okay.
Also, when we do publish the budget, so if you go onto our website and look under the budget, you can see the departments broken out. So you do have that level of information for you. So you can see the Human Resources Department, you can see the admin budget, you can see all the individual public works departments broken out and the way that we publish the budget.
Okay, and to just elaborate on that, because when the 2F stuff was getting talked about, a lot of people thought that they get the 2F money and then the police budget would go down. And the town manager at that time said that there was going to be like a fixed amount, and then there would be the 2F money would go for those other items. So I would just like to make sure that the public would be able to see exactly what it really is. So it sounds like that's what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah. So we would have, similar to how we have parks. We have a fund in the general budget, and then we have the park fee fund. We have the conservation fund, which are all used for parks. Those are all broken out into the budget. So you can see how each of those funds are used. So we would have the 2F fund, and then we'd have in the general budget, in the general fund, we would have a law enforcement budget.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, of course you can.
So just some background, this is all a side effect of breaking out the 2F fund. Because it was my goal going into the next year that I could account for every single penny that came in from 2F to show that it was spent on the exact items that we had asked for. So by doing that, it kind of shed some light on how we were allocating the general. I mean, we were spending general fund money before. We're going to be spending general fund money next year. But I think Madeline hit it on the head that it's not in the presentation, but it's in the budget. You can, if you look at the actual budget, you can see the breakout. And in fact, they just sent it to me the other day, and it's exactly what we talked about. So maybe if it makes you feel better, I'm confident we're going to get the money that we've asked for going forward, because I am in that process. I was part of the process that put this together.
Thank you.
Steve?
And then one additional note to that too is in the monthly financial reports that are published every month and sent to you, you'll be able to see that breakdown for the law enforcement, even though they're part of the general fund. But as we continue with the general fund, we move into expenditures, and we see salary and wages increase by 2.6 million and benefits increase by 1.1 million. Again, this is in part by taking on the law enforcement. We're adding 31 new FTEs to the general fund. And then we see a COLA of 3%, a merit of 2%, and then a catch-up provision of 3%. And what this catch-up provision is, as we do our compensation study, and say they came back and said a specific role was underpaid, we now have that provisions and that catch-up ability in the same year to get that role caught up to where they should be and what they should be paid. And then again, this includes all non-2F law enforcement expenses. And then purchase services increased by 832,000. This is broken out by an increase of insurance by 115,000, technical service by 351, and professional services by 228,000. Additionally, we have a capital outlay increase of 137,000. And is there any questions on the expenditures?
Yes. Salaries and wages. So this includes the increase in police pay salaries?
Yes, it does. And the police, they're on a stepping grade rather than the merit program.
And then how does the rest of the salary and wage increase work for the rest of this is all for the staff, for all the employees?
Yes, that is correct.
So discuss the 2% merit. How does the merit portion work? And then
from previous years, we were using the Bamboo software. So the same software that we were able to do our employee surveys through. And it was a quarterly evaluation given from the director to the employee. And if you scored above, I believe it was a 4.1 out of 5, the merit was provided.
So the 2% is merit, and it would be based on a pay for performance scale.
So there's different levels, right?
Correct.
It's not all or nothing. They've got the ability to achieve some of that 2% along
Correct.
the way.
Yes. And this is what we're proposing.
And then the 3% is just a budget item in case the survey comes back and shows that you're low in one or more areas.
Correct. We wanted to be able to come back this year, 2025, with the results of the compensation survey and make adjustments in 2025 versus having to wait for 2026 to make those employees at the level that they needed to be at, should that be found in the survey.
Okay.
and
Thanks.
Chief, how does it work with this to stay competitive or
Well, so with the step and grade, the officers are gonna get a 6% raise. That's what we all agreed on. And then they would get anything from COLA on top of that. So if we're looking at ourselves side by side with other agencies in the area, a 3% COLA gets us closer to where we want to be. I mean, it's not a fix, like the step and grade was a fix. This is kind of like a catch-up provision, but having the additional 3% available, if we identify that they're lacking in the police officer salary range, we have the ability to add another 3% if we need it. So it's trending in the right direction. Problem is it's a moving target. So if I'm trying to catch up to the numbers from this year, they're going to be different next year. They'll be different the year after. So it's just a game of catch up. Does that answer your question?
Okay, thank you.
But it's also moving in that, I mean, there's no expectation, I hope, that we're going to match the larger agencies on a regular basis, because it's just not possible. We don't have the tax revenue to keep up with the Joneses, right? I mean,
Right. So,
similar size agencies, I understand, but
right.
state police, Denver, Colorado Springs.
Any county.
Yeah,
Right. So, we look at the surrounding agency. I look at the places I'm losing people to, right? So I look at those salaries and then I say, okay, we're probably not ever going to be where Colorado Springs is, but we're also not ever going to have the number of employees and the revenue coming in. But we want to be in a range where we're close enough that it's not detracting to come here when they could get on with CSPD and El Paso County. That's just something we will probably all have to discuss what that number looks like. I'll put it all together. I can present it to tell you where we are in the area, and then the council can decide what number they want us to be.
And that's one of the goals with the compensation survey is we will determine where we should be at within the market. If we want to be at the higher end or if we want to be in the middle. So those will be information that we collect from the compensation survey, and then we'll bring, for some decisions to be made. We are hoping that it'll be completed in the first quarter of 2025. So we have RFPs out right now. So we're hoping that we should be able to bring that contract to you in December or January of next year.
Are there any additional questions? Okay. All right, we have a couple more expenditures for the general fund. We have the town hall roof and the Verigy project, and that is $165,000 and $250,000. The transfer out decrease, I'll get to that when we talk about the 2.7 below it. But we also have the $2 million transfer out for the ARPA funds, and this will be going to the storm drainage impact fee fund. And then we can see the decrease from that transfer of 2.7 million not being transferred to the police, and that's why we see a decrease of 666,000, is we're not transferring that full amount out, as the expenses will be held in the general fund. Are there any final questions for the general fund?
doesn't look like it.
Okay. All right. For capital project fund, we see the ending balance is 17,000 and the revenue increased by 510,000. This line item has been under budgeted for the last couple of years, and so we increased it by 2% based off the 2023 actuals. And then we have a decrease in the intergovernmental by 2 million. Originally, this is where the ARPA fund was going to be spent out of, but we're taking that out to move to the storm drainage impact fee. And then we see expenditures of a capital outlay increase of 126,000 and the Jackson Creek widening project at $3 million. Any questions for the capital projects?
So for the past year, they've been talking about the Jackson Creek widening being 9 million. How do we decrease it to 3 million?
Basically, because of where we're at in the process right now, we don't believe that we'll be fully working in construction next year. And so we're only budgeting 3 million for next year, with 2026 being more of the bulk of the project.
She reviewed this with us. And we were discussing the investment money being used for the purposes of the road.
Mhm.
She had said we would not need to put the entire dollar amount up front because we would be staggering it over a couple of years, and that would reduce what looked to be a negative number in our budget. This is before we found $15 million. But what appeared to be a negative number. And so instead of going in the whole 9 million, we can spend 3 this year, 2025, and then what's needed in the coming years for the construction side of things.
But have we developed a plan to continue to save money for that project or that?
With our investment fund, we have the funds. It's just we're not going to be at the point next year of spending them.
So our sole plan is to use our investment fund, Vice, coming up with some other means.
That's right now our plan.
We weren't left much. The impact fees did not cover things because they were so low. And that's a study that's still in progress.
We have RFPs out for the impact fee study right now. So the study hasn't begun yet, but we'll hopefully be picking a vendor here in the next couple of months. And then we'll move forward with the impact fee study.
Our impact fees were not close to what the surrounding areas are. So there was no money being put away for roads like we thought there was.
Yeah, or storm draining or
Yeah.
lots of things.
We're working on changing, but that doesn't fix it right now.
Right.
Right.
All right, now we have the 2A Water Fund. We have an ending balance for the 2A Water Fund of $4.1 million. The revenue, this is a 1% of the sales tax allocation monthly that goes into this fund. And then for expenditures, we increased the capital outlay by 2.9 million from prior year. And this is due to $3 million being moved from the water to the 2A for the Monument Hill water tank. And then capital outlay also increased due to the public works facility design. Is there any additional questions for the 2A water?
We can probably have a whole meeting on 2A water. And so
All right, we'll keep it rolling then. So we'll jump into 2F Police Fund. Revenue, we have this is where the 2F Police Fund is funded by that 0.5% of the 3.5% of the monument sales tax. And then we see a decrease in the transfer as we apply with the ordinance. And then the expenditures, we reduce all expenditures as they are going into the general fund. And then to apply with the 2F ordinance, the town must track and spend money for that 0.5% specifically on purchases of 8 police officers, maintaining and replacement of patrol cars, costs of a detective, special enforcement officers to focus on break-ins, drug dealing, etc., and then replacement of public safety equipment.
who's dealing the drugs?
They're trying to figure out.
Okay.
All right. The Community Development Fund has an ending balance of 22,000. The revenues, we plan to stay consistent for the Community Development Fund as of 2024. However, there will be a small reduction as we transfer a portion of the FTE is reallocated. And then expenditures, increase of 64,000 in supplies for non-capital as we look to add signs for I-25, Beacon Light, and the Highway 105. And then for traffic impact fee, there are no changes in revenues for 2025. However, the ending balance did change because we tied it with the audited financials. And there are no changes in expenditures. For the storm drainage impact fee fund, we see the revenue changed by that $2 million for the ARPA funding to be transferred in. And then other revenues staying consistent with 2024. We have the expenditures of spending the $2 million for that ARPA money for the incoming transfer. And then an increase of 7.5 thousand for repairs and maintenance in 2025. And I've jumped the last couple slides. I just want to check if there's any questions.
I do.
Okay.
Going back to the Community Development Fund, just for clarification for those that are either online or watch the recording later, Could you explain the increase of $64,000 in supplies and non-capital for I-25, Beacon Light and Highway 105 signs? What kind of signs?
So this is actually a lower priority item, but it came out of the wayfinding study that we did a couple years ago. So it's just a way to kind of help it with some of the directional signs and gateway signage around town, but it's an opportunity if we need to redirect those funds somewhere else. It is a lower priority item.
And so these aren't really on I-25, they're just alongside.
Right. The idea was kind of trying to add some signage when you come off the interstate, when you come off of Highway 105 into town. So it's really just some additional directional signage into more of the town.
Got it. The reason why I'm asking that question is because just, if you were just to read it, or someone that's wants to pull this up and read it, they're like, why are we paying for Highway 105 signs and I-25 signs where?
Well, the signage doesn't really point to Monument that often. They point to other towns around Monument.
Yeah.
But
No, I get it. I'm just saying the verbiage. It might be,
I know.
it might be confusing for
it's sort
someone
of
that's.
nice to know where Monument is.
Yeah.
Who? Arkansas.
Might not want to.
All right.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions on community development fund, the traffic impact, or the storm drainage impact fee? Okay. All right, we'll dive into the big player. So we have the water ending balance of the 2025 at 4.8 million. We reduced investment income. As I mentioned earlier, we spent the entirety of the COP bond. And then we moved rent for the 259 building, the photographer underwater for 2025. Expenditures, we increased by 600,000 for the water funds portion of the public works building design. Then we see a public professional service increase of 290,000. This is to split the impact fee study with planning or with the general fund and the water project consultant. We reallocated the contingency line item of 180,000 to wells repairs and maintenance, and then increased the wells repairs by 342,000.
We expecting the wells to break? Or is this based on, is that number based on historical data that our wells break and this is what they cost to fix?
A little of both. We have certain wells that are getting up in age that we have to plan for worst case scenario if a pump and motor fail during the peak of summer. Another thing to keep in mind is we have 3 new wells coming online. I really don't expect any problems with those, but you know, you just never know. It's good to have that available so that we don't have to go into any type of emergency. I noticed that contingency line item is no longer existing. That's where that money moved into the general wells, well maintenance and repairs. Normally that contingency was set aside to pull and replace 2 of our largest wells. That's why it was sized at 180,000. So now we just move that into well repairs. So if we need to work, we can get it done.
I have a question on the water fund related to renewable water purchases. And this also can go to the two-way question as well. But since we have 15 million, where it's hard to assess how much the water is going to be because you don't know like what the acre foot is going to be available to purchase. And that'll obviously drive the cost as well as the demand signal. But do we have a line item that identifies renewable water purchase for 2025? And you know, would it make sense to have a placeholder of a certain cost? Typically, like say 2 million, or how does that work in terms of renewable water purchase for 2025? How do we identify that in the budget?
Well, as of right now, there's not a separate line item for that. Um, renewable water purchases would always be funded out of the 2A fund. But if we got to the point where we're in a position to make that purchase, then I believe we'd come back to the board because we have a budgeted amount in 2A, but there's more money that's been accumulating over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's there for that type of purchase, right? What was it originally intended for?
If I'm not mistaken, the council has the ability to move money wherever we want it to be.
That was gonna be my next question, is that 15 million, do we have it available to move it to the 2A for water purchases, for renewable water purchases?
I believe you do, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. And I don't know, again, you don't know how much water you're going to buy because you don't know what's going to become available. But I'm wondering if it's worth, and this is a finance director question, is this something that we want to have, maybe not permanent, earmarked on the budget year over year, renewable water purchase, and then what's the best way forward? Do we have like a placeholder? Maybe that's not the best way to do it, but we just have a line item that's maybe blank.
2A is.
Yeah.
2A is specifically for that, and then we need to have follow-up conversations based on previous meetings with our water attorney. We're waiting to hear data back. And I mean, we literally can move money from any side we want.
This should be good conversation for a workshop next
Okay.
meeting, the next time.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm in agreement with you. I don't know about the rest of the council, but I don't want to see us earmark it yet because the 2A earmarks it for us. We can just move the money if we need it.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess I have a question, and this is probably a finance question. Does 2A qualify as a restricted fund? If so, then the answer to your question is, if it's there, that's what it's supposed to be used for. And we can't mingle or move out of 2A. We can move in,
Yeah.
but not out.
Yeah, right.
Does it qualify? Does 2A?
So 2A is a restricted fund, and the objectives are to acquire the water rights to improve and protect the town's future water sources.
Thank you.
Steve?
All right, and then the last couple of expenditures for the water fund is we have removed expenses of the 3 million for the 2A water tank. Removed the 800,000 for the booster stations, and then reduction in the town of monuments administration fees as we've reorganized some of the FTEs to fit under more appropriate job descriptions and departments. Are there any questions on those ones? Okay. For park fee fund, we have an ending balance of $4,000. The revenue for this is kind of dependent on the lodging tax ballot passing or failing. This can affect it by $200,000 in revenue. And we do see an increase in revenue of $20,000 for the use charge and fees. Expenditures to go along, we have $83,000 for the Monument Lake restrooms, $70,000 for the Heart of Monument parking, $100,000 for the Heart of Monument Park, and $10,000 for the community grant match.
I hate to say this because I know we have a representative from the park sitting someplace. Is he still here?
He had to leave, but he will be back.
I
He will.
was under the impression that this park was being fully funded through donations. And this is now 170,000 from the town to contribute to the park.
So the park, yes, the Kiwanis have said that they would like to fundraise for the entire cost of the park. The parking lot was always going to be our responsibility, though.
Okay.
The 100,000 that we're proposing is to help with some of the matches for the grants that we've been applying for. and to kind of speed up the process a little bit because we haven't been getting the grants and the donations that we've expected to be getting by now. And so if we can start showing that we have some additional leverage, then we are more likely to get some other grants.
I've eaten at every restaurant that you
That
You-
that
not
absolutely
helping?
helps, but I think we raise a couple $1,000s at each of those events and we're needing about 700,000. So it's a long
can't eat
process.
that much. Right.
So we're trying to go.
More eating.
from-
More eating, less
So
talking.
the 100,000, if you don't get the grant, that 100,000 goes back. It gets reallocated.
This would just be
It-
grant matching money.
Correct. It would be used towards grant, but towards grant matching. So what grantors like to see is that there's money, skin in the game, if you will.
Sure.
For the 70,000, we are applying for a grant to help us offset those costs as well. So there, we are looking at trying to reduce some of these numbers, but we just do need to have kind of that leverage in order to get some of these grants.
What is allocated aside from that almost $300,000 in expenditures? What's allocated for 2025 for parks in general?
So other expenses for parks come out of the general fund budget. This is just the parks fee fund because it's a smaller fund.
Okay,
And we do have the project list. However, I am suggesting really reducing that for 2025 so that we can be in a better position for 2026 for grants. We'd been applying for some grants to do some improvements to the Limbach Park, some more improvements, but we weren't invited to move forward in the grant process for 2025. And so if we would delay our improvements to 2026, we'll have a better likelihood of leveraging funds for more grants
it's
for
phase
that.
two, in
Mhm.
other words.
Phase
Limbach.
two, yes.
Okay.
But we can get you what we do have allocated for other park projects outside of the Heart of Monument Park.
Okay. Any other questions about the parks fee fund? Okay, Steve.
All right, Conservation Trust Fund has an ending balance of 150,000. And for revenue and expenditures, there's no changes from the 2024 budget. And that'll bring us to an end. Are there any questions on the proposed or the amended budgets?
Council?
This packet that you gave, the stapled packet,
Yes.
this is the, some data in here, just like to ask some questions. If you're under the general fund revenue detail on the second page, it says user charges and fees, and then you go below, it says other fees. In the 2024 amended budget, it said 163,000. And in the proposed 2025 budget, it says 192,000.
The amended budget, the 163,000, that was the payoff, I believe, of the police loan, that was budgeted for 2024. And so that's being removed in the amended budget.
Okay. And then on the 2A water ASD fund expenditure detail. At the bottom of the page, it says other transfers out loop water project, $750,000. When was that decided and who decided that?
So I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I believe it's 500,000 for the loop water project, and then there's 250,000 budgeted. Do you remember, Tom, exactly what it was?
I'm pretty sure that we had to put that in and we lose the 4 million, right?
Right.
That's what it is.
And then we
Yeah.
get something back.
Yeah, we get like $250,000 or $200,000 back, something like that.
Yes, that's what it was.
On the Community Development Fund Summary page. Community Development Fund Revenue Detail. Towards the bottom of the page, it says other revenue sponsorships. $10,000.
So for all of our events, we ask for sponsorship money, and so that's revenue that comes in from that.
Is that extra from what they're, like what the remainder of what's left over? Or is that what the cost of those, for those venues, for those events?
It depends on the event, but it doesn't cover the cost of all of our events, no.
Because on the Community Development Fund expenditure detail continued, economic development, marketing and events, grants, donations, $14,000, marketing and events, $64,000.
Right, so that's all of our events. So we have business grants. That's what the grants are. So we give business grants to businesses. And then the rest of it is what we spend on events, our graphic design person to help us with things like reports. But mostly events is what that goes to.
And then I also know that we've had several different organizations come to the board and do presentations. They do fantastic jobs and they're asking for monetary donations from the town to help support them.
Mhm.
What are those amounts and where are they located at in the summaries? that
We will, they're part of the general fund, so we can get you that breakdown of information.
I'd like to know all of the agencies so we can determine if there's any that are missing or if there are any we want
Yeah.
to make changes to and the dollar amount. Can we have that,
Mhm.
please?
Yeah, I feel that that should be in the breakout.
We should be deciding how much money they're getting and I don't see it.
Yeah, that will be in the budget, in the detail that we send to you at a later date, before the 2nd,
Okay, before December 2nd.
correct?
Any other questions on the budget?
Here's just one. So assuming that this budget is close to the one that gets passed, the reserves are 13.5%-ish.
Yes, is 13.36.
Okay, so with some of those items that we were talking about, there was money set aside for grants and other things, grant matching and things like that. If those grants didn't get obtained and that money went back in, that would up that percentage as well, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so there's a lot of optional things that would add to the reserves.
Yes. And I'd like to add that 13.37 is also with the 3% TABOR. So there's that included. And we do have to have that, but just as additional information.
What is the, refresh my memory, what is the recommendation percent to have in the reserves?
3% for Tabor?
No, for the,
Oh,
Overall, was it like
It was
15 or
15 to
20%?
20%.
Okay. I mean, internally, what is our goal? What if,
we set the goal.
I know, but
Well, what do you want it to be? 20%?
I,
They'll adjust.
I mean, have we calculated the flexibility of the difference of 15 or 20%? What that would mean in our budget? I personally, I would like to go on the high end just because in case there's emergencies that have to be taken care of. That's like certain areas or there's, whether it's the tanks or whatever else, but I just trying to remember what the percentages that we had set
Well, if-
before, or if we have.
I think we were
When was last
we were around 16 last year, I think.
Yeah,
Last year, we were at 16.46.
16.46.
I mean, it's not a bad number. You go too high and we start reducing projects completely.
I get that. I'm just trying to see, did we determine saying this is the percent that we want as the.
We
board
did last
figure?
year.
Yeah, but we haven't done it this year yet.
We're-
We're trying to.
We're here right now.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing, brother.
I would say, personally, I would say, I don't know how everyone feels, but a minimum of 15%. If not, if we don't match what we had last year.
Yeah, I think,
15% would give you more money too, right? Because yep. Would give you another 1.6% or something like that?
correct. But what it would mean is we would have to reduce some of our expenditures in order to meet that. And so we would be taking things out of our budget from what we presented.
No, because you have it now 13%.
Correct.
And you would have, well, Yeah, it's either,
It does hurt the numbers.
So
Are we leveraging on our investments to pull money out in case we have to?
well, for the road, we had talked about that.
Yeah.
And we can always amend the budget later. It would be an easier thing to do than trying to torture these numbers at this point.
I think 13, are you guys comfortable with 13%? Ish,
without having-
comfortable-ish.
Without having a full conversation with our new finance director,
Yeah.
yes.
The new finance director might tell you you need 25%.
We did give you a copy of the list of priorities for the projects that we did put into the budget. So you do have that to review.
Yeah.
So if you did want to make some changes in order to help make that reserve number look a little bit different, then you do have that option as well. Again, like we talked about, those signs could be an opportunity where we don't have to do that project. That could be something that we do after the comprehensive plan is done, at a later date. That's just something that's kind of carry over from year to year since we did that study. So, but it's not a high priority at this time.
And you obviously already pulled a lot of stuff out because there was a considerable deficit when we first opened up this conversation, so.
Right. The big one being Jackson Creek Parkway.
Right, Jackson Creek Parkway is the killer for everything,
Correct.
right?
Was that Jeremiah's recommendation to?
It is just based on where we'll be at with the project. We'll be at 90% design by December, but there's still a lot of negotiation that has to happen with the surrounding property owners, especially towards the Higby Road area. So there's still a lot that has to be done in order to get to construction.
And I think we're in agreement that even with the impact fee studies that still need to be done, that the negotiations need to be, you will pay your way to pave the road in front of your property and become part of the joint effort between the town and the rest of the property owners to make Jackson Creek and Higby look like a proper road. There'll be no games. We're not giving any, you're paying for the road, and we're gonna go back to the county, right? And ask them to contribute because of Lewis Palmer High School. They paid nothing, probably, how many years did I say? 48 years ago? 48 years Lewis Palmer's been around. And I am sure that impact fee money, if they paid anything, does not exist anymore. So we probably need to ask them for some assistance since we'll be paving and making Higby and Jackson Creek safer for them.
Yep, that's part of our plan.
The line in the sand is drawn. You good with that?
What are you saying, Brad? Going on there.
Okay, anything else on the budget?
Nope, good.
All right, we will move on to ordinance number 23, 2024. Thank you, Steve, and all the
Yeah, I was
departments
gonna say, thank you.
for
That was excellent.
his work in getting these budgets. And whoever found the 15 million, good job.
And thanks for indulging me,
Yeah.
both of you.
An ordinance rezoning the property known as 574 North Washington Street from a downtown business to single-family detached medium density district. Mr. Ungerleider. We got an understudy coming in.
You got me tonight.
All right, Ray.
Hello, council. It's good to see you all.
How are you, Ray?
Good. Wonderful.
Wonderful. Couldn't be better.
All right. So, as you've already pointed out, rezoning for 574 North Washington. We have the applicant here today, Mr. Robert Barish, who is seeking approval to rezone his property at 574 North Washington from downtown business zoning to single-family detached medium density for the purpose of providing safe housing for his disabled son. Staff has reviewed the subject application and analyzed the applicable criteria from section 1803460 of the Town of Monuments Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan. The Pikes Peak Regional Building Department is prepared to receive a building permit application to bring the structure up to residential housing code standards once the property has been properly rezoned. The existing site is consistent with attributes and characteristics stated in the comprehensive plan. I've also included some images from our existing zoning map showing that the property is located in downtown business, future land use map from the 2017 comprehensive plan showing that it is intended for single-family detached medium density. Moving forward, we also just wanted to remind you that we did meet noticing requirements to have as many eyes on this for this conversation today. Moving forward to the findings of fact. Number one, compatibility with surrounding zone districts. The proposed use to 574 North Washington, assuming the approval of a rezoning, adequately aligns with the location, attributes, and characteristics for single-family detached zoning identified by the town's comprehensive plan. Traffic generation and road safety. The property at 574 North Washington, as it exists, adequately provides street access to the site for utility services and has sufficient on-site parking to serve a single-family home. Traffic is not anticipated to increase disproportionately with the addition of the single-family home. Adjacent land. The proposing rezoning shall allow the property to become consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. Comprehensive plan itself. The downtown business zoning at 574 North Washington is currently inconsistent with the comprehensive plan's future land use map, and rezoning 574 North Washington would make the zoning consistent with that comprehensive plan and the surrounding neighborhood. Zoning classification. This existing zoning classification is not currently being identified as an error. And lastly, infrastructure/utilities. The existing property at this location currently has adequate access to infrastructure and utilities. The recommended action from the planning department today is a motion to approve ordinance number 23/2024, an ordinance rezoning the property at 574 North Washington Street from downtown business to single-family detached medium density district as presented in attachment 2 of the staff's memorandum. Thank you.
I had a quick question for you. What is can we go back, Will, to the map that shows where the home is or the business, current business?
It's a home today, isn't
It's a
it?
home. It is a home.
It's sized adequately for a home, but it's currently zoned downtown business and is a home.
Oh.
It's non-conforming.
Hmm.
Yeah, so when they were rezoned, however, many years ago, it just became a non-conforming structure. Yeah.
So it wasn't in.
But it's being lived in.
Right. So, but what is next to it? Is that a home?
Yes.
It's a home now. Okay. Okay. That's why I just didn't
Yeah,
know if
'cause
there was a business there. So is that the only parcel that was zoned as a business then, or?
It wasn't.
It's kind of isolated. It's down a hill.
Yeah, if you look at Google Maps, it looks like there's some sort of
That's the,
Yeah, it's
It's like a
the warehouse behind it. Yeah, please. Come on out. Come on down.
So,
cross.
Nice to meet you.
Yes. Thank you.
thank you for the opportunity to address council. I appreciate it. The structure was built in the mid-90s as a two-car garage. We're talking
Oh.
480 square feet. It was, there is a residential property. It's the northernmost property on Jefferson.
Yep.
Before you go down Big Hill.
hmm
So the original property owners, they had their house and their business.
Gotcha.
They subdivided it. And it was still residential. A guy bought it to open up a bicycle shop
Mhm. Okay.
because it's along the Santa Fe Trail.
Yep.
That never
Makes sense.
happened. The guy got real squirrely with regional building department and,
Because that's always fun.
right. And so, yeah, he had it rezoned to downtown business as a warehouse. This warehouse is 1/3 the size of this room. It's ridiculous to call it a warehouse. During all of that, he had extensive renovations through regional to, put in plumbing and heat and all that sort of thing that you need. But he did it to residential code for a commercial property. The
Mhm.
codes are different.
Yeah.
So, my wife and I were able to pick this property up at below market value
Mhm.
because of, all the conflict with
Mhm.
regional. And so I'm working with them to get that squared away. But to do that, I either need to have the property, a conditional use as residential, or rezone it back to
Residential. Okay.
downtown business.
Well, conditional use doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think.
So either way, I was good to go forward with permits. And if this works, that's great. As far as the adjacent properties, we have the town's, equipment yard to the east,
Right.
Highway 105 to the north, CDOT, the railroad, and, I think a lift station, and now some Connex boxes showed up to the west. And then to the north, or I'm sorry, to the south, is a very large embankment that goes up to the original
Okay.
house.
Got it.
So it kind of sits down there right next to the creek. It was forgotten about for decades.
Right.
People drove past it and probably didn't even realize it was there.
I've walked through there during Creek Week cleanup and
Right.
picked up many
Mhm.
fireball bottles.
Okay.
So right now, we just want it rezoned back to residential so I can clear up the permits with regional building and allow my son a safe, affordable place to live.
Sounds reasonable.
Yes, thank you for explaining.
Thank you. Well, this is a public hearing item, so first thing we'll do is open the public hearing to the public and see if there's anybody here that would like to speak for or against this, this ordinance. What? Is there anybody online, Will?
No, Mayor.
Okay, I will bring it back to the council for further discussion.
I'll make a,
Don't make a motion yet. Just give me 1 second.
all right.
I have one question to Ray or Dan. What can go on this site to max it out with, given the size of it and everything else? What could be put on here?
We haven't done an analysis of that type, but I mean, this would have a single family home on the property. We could certainly take a look at, existing setbacks and so on, but I would assume that a single family home with a detached garage would fit on this property.
I mean, with this zoning classification, it's,
With the current zoning classification?
with the zoning classification that they're requesting for single family detached medium
Yeah, what is
density.
what does the medium density indicate? I mean, what is it, 4 single family homes on the lot? Or
I
2?
honestly, I wouldn't, I don't want to pull a number out of the hat, but we'd have to take a closer look at that to see. I know the owner's done some work, homework on his own for future reference.
Well, okay, if you could come up and speak to that, that would be fine too. I'm just curious, how big is that site?
So this site, I think it's roughly a quarter acre.
Oh, I see.
Some of it's unbuildable though. It's
Right, right,
near
right.
the creek and
And
so
the embankment.
then there's the very large embankment.
Right.
So the creek is to the north. The embankment is to the south. So there is some possibility to build within setbacks towards the east and west, the front and the back of the structure. My understanding of this zoning is that I could do at max a 2-family structure,
So like a
a
duplex.
duplex.
Right. Okay, that's all I needed. Fair enough.
Thank you.
Okay, make your motion.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 23-2024, an ordinance rezoning the property known as 574 North Washington Street from downtown business to single family detached medium density district.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanella,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Mayor LaKine,
Yes,
Councilmember Fiorito.
Yes.
the motion passes 7-0. Congratulations on your rezone. I hope that you can get things worked out with regional and build whatever structure you need to accommodate your son.
Mayor LaKind? I just wanted to, while the owners, the applicant, the owner here, Mr. Barnish or Barish, sorry, I took my glasses off. I just wanted to thank him for his patience as I was playing catch up and getting to know my position. He's been very patient throughout the process, trying to determine the best way to take this through. And I also wanted to thank Plan Commission while they're not here. It was their unanimous recommendation to approve this too. So that this went through quite a public ordeal. But Mr. Barish, thank you for participating and being patient throughout the process.
One thing on the presentation, if we could add in the future, a snapshot of Google Maps, the location, that would be beneficial for us because we're looking on the tablets at it.
Yeah.
Or
Thanks.
Maps. Okay, public comments for items not on the agenda. Individuals attending in person may raise their hand to indicate their desire to comment. Individuals attending via Teams may raise their hand digitally to comment via connected devices. Please lower your hand when finished with your comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Wow, we've got a hand. All right.
Come see, no comment, no one? No?
Can you please state your name for the council, please?
Dan DeBoo, 17408 Quarry Way. On behalf of the residents of Village Center Estates, I want to draw your attention to the change in traffic patterns on Knollwood. Knollwood as it enters the Classic Homes Development Monument Junction East. Knollwood changes direction from being north-south to going east-west as it enters Monument Junction East. That bend in the road where it intersects with Lucky Penny Road is now a major thoroughfare to connect with Jackson Creek Parkway as it goes through that subdivision. With the near completion of all the single-family homes in that development, it's a major thoroughfare. And the residents that traverse that pathway, which is part of the Metro Water District pathway that goes through our subdivision, there's a lot of dog walking and other pedestrian traffic there. The vehicular traffic that comes down Knollwood from the contractors in that development, as well as the public coming from other portions east of our subdivision, is a health risk to the pedestrians. There's no signage at all on Knollwood or speed limits. We're telling people to slow down. And several residents in our subdivision have asked, can you say something? So I'm here to say something, to say, get some signage out there or put a couple of fake radar guns or speed bumps or something to remind people that they should slow down. That's my request.
Thank you. This topic came up before when they were still discussing whether Knollwood was going to be a complete pass-through from 105 all the way to Jackson Creek. And instead, what they did is they staggered it. We talked about with Megan Harrington about speed softening along Knollwood because it's 25 and people are doing much faster. We talked about bike lanes being striped in, and then there was conversation about the bikes becoming targets. And instead of people slowing down, there could be accidents. Talk about speed bumps, and the speed bumps was, negated due to the plows. But anyway, I don't know what we do about it. I thought there was a sign. Did the sign get taken down? Or by Cipriani?
Cipriani, you're already reducing speed because of the traffic light up on
105.
So you're talking about coming from the east side and circling around to the north.
Correct.
So it would appear that I'm pretty sure there's a sign if you're heading the opposite direction. near the Maverick. There's a 25-mile-an-hour sign,
Yes.
but there's not one going the opposite direction yet.
Once you turn and head west on Noble, there's nothing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in town hall that would like to make public comment? Okay, anybody online, Will?
No, Mayor.
All right, we will close public comment, move on to future agenda item authorizations.
I've got a list.
Oh, geez. There we go. Okay.
My day calendar out.
The first item, there's been a request to add a ordinance talking about psilocybin mushrooms and address the time, place, and manner that these wellness centers can have the consumption of those mushrooms. So I just need to know if council would like to put that on a future agenda.
Let me just speak to it real quick. The Pikes Peak Mayor's Caucus, sort of newly formed, it brought up because Mayor Thompson out in Fountain was working on theirs. We have a deadline. The ordinance needs to be in effect before January 1st, if we make modifications to the recently passed state statute, we would lose our ability to reflect or put in place the time, place, and manner of where these wellness centers where they would be. So we don't have a choice but to allow them, but we do have some control over time, place, and manner of their operation. So either we get it done ASAP or we don't get it done at all. And so what's the direction that the council would like to do?
ASAP.
ASAP, yes.
Okay, I am working on getting a copy of what Fountain is implementing from their attorney. They lost their attorney. And so they're using their, they have a number 2. I don't know how long it's going to be, but we should probably start looking at facilitating our own ordinance on our own until I can get a copy of what they've worked on.
Okay. We'll try to get that on the 18th, but I'll have to talk with our attorney's firm and see if that's possible.
I think we can, I mean, if it's drafted, we can probably push it to the 1st of December because we'll still have enough time for it to go into effect, right?
You should, yes.
Okay. I wouldn't push that hard then, because I think we have a lot of things on the 18th.
Correct. I believe we do. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but the December 2nd is also a budget. That's when they adopt the budget, when you adopt the budget. So,
Yeah, I don't think, after tonight, I don't think it looks like we're gonna have too much
okay.
hours of drama on that.
Okay.
Perfect.
I knew you was going to say something. I was looking at you and I was.
A plethora of knowledge.
Thank you so much for confirming. So it's important that we get it done before the 10 days expiration.
Okay. We'll see where it fits in the best and what works with our attorney's timeline.
Okay.
The second request is to add a Crash Responder Safety Week proclamation to the November 18th council meeting.
One pager?
I believe so.
Okay, Marco, it's all yours.
Send it.
The next items are just sort of some things that we need to get participation from council and to firm up some meeting dates. So the first item is we need 2 members of council to sit on our review committee to go over the RFPs for both the compensation plan and the impact fee study.
What date?
We don't have a date yet for those, but we just need a couple of members to sit on that.
I'll do the impact fees for sure.
Ooh. Hold on.
So you need 2 people for each?
No, we are going to try to have them both done together. Review them together.
Comp and the impact fee.
Yeah, do them both.
Okay.
You've got your 2.
Good with those.
So
I'm good
who's,
with you guys doing it.
who are the 2, Laura and Steve?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
And then it sounds like, but I just want to confirm with you all here that the date that will work for the water workshop with our water attorney is the 18th. It
Before
didn't,
the meeting.
before the meeting on the 18th, no one was available sooner because that is. So our only options, however, are this Friday, the 8th, in the middle of the day, like 2 or 3 p.m.
I can't.
Or the 15th or the 18th. So it sounds like the 18th is it.
I can do it. I can do any time after 12 o'clock on the 18th.
I'd like to get us all there. So why don't we just make it the workshop before the 18th?
Okay, so would you like to start that at 5 or 5:30?
I think we should do 5 on that
5.
one.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never a proponent of that, but I am this time.
Yeah.
Are we,
A lot of.
Yeah, this is, we
Give us enough time.
could continue it, I guess, during board comment if we really wanted to, right, in the meeting. That's fine.
I suppose
Good.
so.
5 o'clock, the 18th, and then we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
And then just a reminder and to see who all plans to participate. The Monument Fire Department would like to do a tour this Saturday to talk about some impacts of wildfire mitigation. We don't need everybody there, but I just wanted to remind everyone that it's an option. It starts at 10 a.m. There's various places that we'll drive around to. It'll probably take a couple of
It's a
hours.
field trip.
It's a field trip, yes.
Burn stuff?
No, you get
This
burnt up.
Saturday. The weather is supposed to be better than it is the rest of this week, but
I've already RSVP'd.
Yeah, I can be, I'm a tentative yes.
okay.
I need to check with the boss what she has planned for me on Saturday.
We're gonna meet at the 259, the Public Works Building.
I'll be there, so.
Saturday, the 9th.
Okay. If you could just let me know as soon as possible so we can make sure we have the logistics all worked out.
So it's from like 8.
Or I think it'll be 10 to 1 is what the tentative schedule is right now. But if you needed to only attend part of it, that would be fine. It's just an informational tour for you, so. But just let me know so we can work out logistics. And then we've already sort of done it, but I would like to officially introduce Jennifer Phillips, who is our new finance director. Much anticipated. And just publicly thank Lori and Steve for all of their hard work through getting us through the budget.
Yeah, excellent, excellent job. Is that all you have?
I think I have one more thing, but I need to be reminded.
Okay.
Oh. You suggested an executive session earlier this meeting to talk about the property for Comcast and the well site.
Yeah.
I think that would be very appropriate.
Do you have a preferred date to do that?
I don't know that there is, I mean, it's been languishing, so pick a date.
Okay,
You guys use your best judgment on when it makes sense to do it.
okay. We will talk with the attorney that's working on this project and see what makes sense for him. And I think that is all I have for future agenda items.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Okay, since we are looking at calendars, we are still planning on not canceling any meetings through the remainder of the year based on the way the dates have fallen, correct?
That is my plan, yes.
Okey doke. All right, so we'll move on to, well, first, I guess I should ask if anybody on the council has a future agenda item that they would, or is there enough that?
Can we do that in the new year?
Okay, so we'll move on to council comments. I've got a couple, mine are really simple. Turkeys. Turkeys. If you are going to participate, I need a nod.
I'm in.
Yeah, we're in.
Okay, everybody's in. I just need to know when I can bring them. I need to go get them, and then when can I, what's the opening times? And who, anybody who wants to join me, because they always take a picture and it always gets printed. They even put it in the last presentation. So who wants to go get turkeys with me and what date?
When are you
Okay.
getting these turkeys?
As soon as she tells me a date that I can go deliver them,
I'm in town, I'll go.
I will let everybody know.
I'll help you too.
I would like a status on our council chambers because we should be doing some testing on not just the new software. We need to test it remotely in case for some reason we cannot be here. And we need the equipment. So what is the status? It's supposed to be done before the end of this year and we are coming really close and I haven't seen anything done inside council chambers.
Well, do you have an update you can provide?
Yeah, so all the equipment is coming into Smart System and they're pre-configuring all of the so all the equipment is in and they've been configuring everything. They're going to be here starting November 12th to start getting everything installed. Expected to have everything installed by mid-week the following week. And I had talked with Laura Hogan last week. We're looking at a December timeframe for possibly mid-December, Laura. That we talked about Civic Live and doing some training sessions to make sure that my whole goal is to make sure that we have done internal tests to make sure things are flawless. So you're not guinea pigs. You're just coming in, you're getting documentation, you're getting hands in the field of the new systems. So we can say mid-December meeting, we can possibly have an official first use. If we have problems or we see it, then I may say everything's in place, but we may kick it off at being the first of the year is our official use of it if we run into any problems. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, those are all the comments that I had. Who else is up?
I got something.
Yep.
Okay, so I just want to kind of get something on the record here, just so that the public can be aware of this, because there was a letter to the editor in the OCN, in the last OCN that talked about our budgets here. And so I just want to get some things on the record. So first of all, this would be for Madeline. Are we running any kind of budget deficit with this new budget?
No, we are not.
Okay. Mr. Regan, because one of the things it says in here is that we are rating the police department's budget. Are we rating your budget this year? Is your budget more or less than it was last year?
More.
Is there any way that we could take 2F funds and use them for something else?
No.
And is there any way we can defund the police?
No.
Okay. So there were some comments made on that, and I appreciate that, people jump in and write letters to the editor, but this information is inaccurate, and I just want the public to know, if they watch this or if they get the minutes or the next OCN story, we'll talk about this, that in fact, none of that is true.
Wait a minute, inaccurate information in politics?
Well,
I just don't know what to clarify what I'm hearing. I'm hearing right now. That's right.
We
Yeah.
take we spend a lot of time on these budgets, and we genuinely try to make it work and try to make it work for everyone and try to get some additional things for the town to upgrade the town from time to time. So I just want to get that out on the record.
Well, let me just-
That's all I had.
Whoever the author of that was, and the name does not ring a bell, completely disingenuous for that person to have made those comments. And the fact that they keep attacking the town, attacking the good work that the staff is doing, as well as the council, going on 2 years it's just give it a rest, or run yourself, because I don't know who that person is, but if you can do it better than any of us up here, run for office. I just wanted to tack that on.
On another note, I have an announcement for the Fountain Creek Watershed District, and I asked our executive director to send this to Madeline. Also, they are looking for a full-time watershed outreach coordinator position, pays around 40 to 50 grand a year, full-time, overtime available, matching retirement, etc. So if anybody knows somebody who loves the watershed and would like to work in that kind of capacity, just putting that out there in public, and that's what I've got.
Okay, and I have a meeting tomorrow, is that right? November 6th, is that tomorrow? Or the next day?
Not
It's
yet.
the next day, yeah.
Close.
Pikes Peak Housing Network is doing a like a workshop for aging in place. And they have an economist, Tatiana Bailey, who's presenting a report that was done about aging in place. And then they're convening a panel of people, AARP, the APP, AAA, Silver Key, and Brothers Redevelopment. So we may have some feedback on aging in place. Raw. I know.
Right now.
I'm not aware, Mr. Mayor, of any action that should be taken.
Okay, so.
Nope, no, it's not.
No?
All right. I make a motion to enter an executive session and adjourn after the executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 sub 4 sub B for a conference with the assistant town attorney to receive legal advice on specific legal questions regarding code enforcement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson.
Yes.
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 Aye.
That motion passes 7-0. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Good
Um,
Nancy.
Nancy,
Bye.
we'll take a brief few
Recess.
minutes recess and we'll begin the executive session once the room is cleared out.
Did we get cookie?